Hello, Massachusetts. This state is steeped in historical significance. You're likely to literally trip over it. The brickwork is lovely and uneven in places. The Boston Tea Party was a thing. No taxation without representation. Remember that? Massachusetts. Might you be curious if there was a diminishing return on the amount of seafood that I consumed while in the Boston or Cape Cod area? Are you ready to plunder your way through a pirate museum? Did you realize that sea captains used to use cats aboard as early warning detectors of impending storms? Have you ever had your RV bay door open randomly while you're crossing a bridge at speed? Would you like to see some more haunted stuff? What about Provincetown? Have you ever thought about going where everybody knows your name? Man the starboard, pull anchor, hoist the mainsail. We're about to depart into recently charted waters in this episode of Leon's Great Escape. We've done made it, my friends. We dipped our toes in the Atlantic, and it was no small feat. We all let loose a sigh of relief upon this victory. Prior to Cape Cod, which is where our story will start, we ran aground in upstate New York, so please check out that episode if you haven't seen it yet. We leave the KOA in Woodstock, New York, and travel 277 miles to reach Atlantic Oaks Campground on the Cape. How much do you know about Cape Cod? I can tell you this. It's a hook-shaped peninsula connected to the state of Massachusetts, and it's the launching point to elite favorites like Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. It's also home to a fishing party village called Provincetown. We had a bridge to cross to enter the Cape, and that is the exact point in which our basement side hinge door decided to open. I've grown accustomed to all manners of distraction and randomness occurring while driving this thing. Like that time when one of our screens imploded and landed on Dahlia. Candace was rolling video when this one occurred. I can't claim that I was cool like Fonzie when it happened, but no one was hurt and there was just a bit of scuffed paint on the door. It would take longer than we anticipated to get from one side of the peninsula to the other. Our RV park was smack in the middle, and it would still take an hour to get from there to the tip. It's not cheap in RV terms to stay here either. We paid north of $80 a night, and the park was booked solid, such that we could only get 3 nights in total out of them. I'm trying to tell you that you should plan in advance if you want to visit. Procrastinators, ye be warned. It's an eclectic population that floods the streets of Provincetown come summer. They're without judgment of sexual orientation or religious persuasion. Writers, performers, poets, journalists, and other marvelous misfits commune together in bars and cafes. It's been described as an artistic colony that relishes in avant-garde freedom. Here, everyone can be his or herself without fear of being disapproved by others, states visitprovincetown.com. Then, like clockwork, the winter comes and mutes the bravado and empties the masses, like the tides receding. Let's talk seafood. I'm tearing up, reminiscing the crisp, the fresh, the brine, the mouth-watering, the unforgettable cornucopia of crustaceans. It's more likely than not that you're going to have one of the best meals of your life wherever you go here. My first lobster roll of the trip was at Arnolds. Candace had the fish and chips and they were flawlessly executed. Their raw bar is bountiful and it's located inside the building and it's a separate line. Expect to wait 30 or 40 minutes to get an order in on the hot side, and that's midweek. If it's the weekend, who even knows how long it'll take. Arnold's is walking distance from the Atlantic Oaks Park, so that's another point in favor of staying there. Island Cafe and Grill is a quick and quiet breakfast joint with a Caribbean flair. It's also well located for the museums that we'll discuss later. Spiritus Pizza is a great pizza joint on the Cape. The prices are cheap, it's cash only. Heads up. If you're only half paying attention, then it's time you focus, because the words that I share next may change your life. Portuguese kale soup. I'll say it again. Portuguese kale soup. Sure, I had mussels and a full lobster, and they were great, but now I'll say it again. You can say it with me if you like. Portuguese kale soup. It's the only time in my life that I thought, kale isn't a useless leafy green. Imagine the light at the end of a tunnel of dismay, and you'll have an inkling of the power of this brothy goodness. The Lobster Pot, which is where we got all this stuff, also sells this in quart containers to go. I promised pirates, and I'm gonna deliver on that. But before I do, you'll need to become a proper sailor, I suggest that you visit the Maritime Museum in Hyannis. The woodwork and the techniques invented and perfected over thousands of years will captivate you. The museum isn't huge, but we were entranced for at least 2 hours. You'll pay $10 per adult, and children under 3 are free. I soaked up as much information as I could. Did you like that opening tidbit about cats on ships? Cats and superstitious seafarers go back to the 15th century. Cats are able to detect slight changes in the weather as a result of their very sensitive inner ears, which also allows them to land upright when falling. Low atmospheric pressure, a common precursor of stormy weather, often makes cats nervous and restless. Sea captains would then interpret this as, "Oh crap, big storm's coming." You're familiar with the nautical speed unit of measure known as knots? A knot is 1 nautical mile per hour. 1 knot equals 1.15 miles per hour. The term knot dates back to the 17th century when sailors measured the speed of their ships by using a device called a common log. This device was a coil of rope with uniformly spaced knots attached to a piece of wood shaped like a slice of pie. The piece of wood was lowered from the back of the ship and allowed to float behind it. The line was allowed to play out freely from the coil as the piece of wood fell behind the ship for a specific amount of time. When the specified time had passed, the line was pulled in and the number of knots on the rope between the ship and the piece of wood were counted. The speed of the ship was said to be the number of knots counted, hence knots. The Wida Pirate Museum takes you on a voyage through the salvaged remains of a real pirate ship. You can see pieces of cannonballs and cannons, as well as learn of the love story that may have sunk the vessel. And wouldn't you know it, the museum shares a parking lot with Captain Parker's Pub, and they serve these beauties. We closed out the evening with a moonlit walk on the beach, which is the home of a lighthouse which was commissioned by Thomas Jefferson about 200 years ago. And it was actually here that we first dipped our toes in the opposite shore of the country and took commemorative photos. Salem, Massachusetts. Oh, Salem. Salem had to apologize 300 years after the fact for giving in to hysteria that would claim the lives of at least 20 innocent people. There is a monument dedicated to these folks, and it's next to an old cemetery. You can learn about these events and others if you visit the Salem Witch Museum. At that museum, you'll see a sort of reenactment of the witch trials, which is followed up by a Q&A with one of their staff members. They'll walk you around to read placards and look at dried herbs. This was on the cheesy side of entertainment, while still remaining entertaining. Salem has a host of other ghoulish things if you're into that. The best brewery in Salem is Notch Brewery. These guys specialize in session beers, which means that they have a low ABV. So you can enjoy a few of them and not be plastered. One of the highlights for us while in Massachusetts was that we got to meet up with friends and family. It was happenstance that our friends Matt and Megan were flying out of Boston while we were there, so we executed an intercept and we caught up with them, as you do. As a double whammy, on the same day, we also got to celebrate our adopted Aunt Gabby's 50th birthday. And we gifted her with that art that we made in New York at the Glass Museum. Shout out to our good friend Chelsea Miko for sharing her family with us. Pepper's grandma Linda and Papa Paul were also in attendance of the festivities. Like a cherry on top, we even all got to play some music together and bonded with Papa Paul's brother Peter. He plays guitar. There are so many smart folks in Boston. MIT and Harvard help ensure that. Our adopted family member, Peter, is among those bright Bostonians, and he truly loves his home. Peter took us on a walking tour of Boston and filled us in on what we were seeing and how it had changed over the years. How about this guy? He's Ramblin' Dan, the one-man band, and you can find him in the Boston Commons Park. This iconic building was featured on the sitcom Cheers. They've built out a replica of the set that you can actually drink at and pretend that you're being served by Ted Danson or Shelley Long. Or Kirstie Alley. It's up to you, really. It's your fantasy. Faneuil Hall Marketplace is often also called Quincy Market, probably because of this giant sign that says Quincy Market on the building. The building was a gift from a wealthy Bostonian named Peter Faneuil, and was originally opened in 1742. It has just about any delicacy that you can conjure up. 19 miles from Boston is Walden Pond. in Concord, Massachusetts. A book called Walden by Henry David Thoreau inspired part of our journey. It was fitting that we would go see the pond that inspired him to write it. Gandhi, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King. These guys all credited Thoreau with influencing their comportment. Now, I'm not trying to compare myself to them. I'm just pointing out that we have similar taste. They'll charge you $15 to park there, so I recommend that you get the most for your money and plan on hanging out. You can bring a blanket and park yourself on the shore and take in the view. You won't be alone. We saw plenty of folks swimming, hiking, or just basking in the sun. It's that time again where we wax poetically or pathetically, depends on who you ask. On the subject of domicile, here's the thing. We all know that the winters in Boston should throw it out of the running. Boston and the Cape moved us. It has traffic, but it also has adequate public transit. When we looked at the prices of homes, courtesy of Zillow, we found this. The median price for a home is currently around $745,000. The median for things sold, $643. Rent, $2,800. It's not cheap, but it does have high-paying jobs to back it up. Compare that to what we're used to in LA, with median prices of homes at $850,000 and being sold for around $700, and rent being a median of $3,500. Boston is an improvement. We're not going to commit to living in Boston, but we're not going to take it out of the running. Actually, I guess we have to put it in the running because prior to this visit, we weren't really considering it. That's about all I can say for now. You should visit Massachusetts. Avoid it when it's cold, but don't avoid it altogether. In regards to that burning question of whether or not there was a diminishing return on crustaceans consumed. No friggin' way. Clams, mussels, lobsters, scallops, oysters, they dance in my head like sugar plum fairies in the Nutcracker. I'm their worst nightmare. An unbridled eating machine of gluttonous proportions. If you've enjoyed this video, then give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and do share this with anyone that you think would be interested. Our tentative plan now is to wrap up our travels by November, so let's see how much we can cram in there before the clock runs out. Cheers!